The sun had just begun to spill golden light across my apartment, brushing the edges of my sleek, glass coffee table. I ran a hand over the silk blouse I'd chosen for the morning, feeling the soft fabric against my skin, and tried to focus on the peace of the moment. My laptop hummed quietly beside me, a reminder of the empire I'd built quietly, far away from the voices that once doubted me. And then my phone buzzed. A name flashed across the screen. My brother, or maybe it was my parents, but either way, my chest tightened, a familiar mix of dread and irritation washing over me. I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the green button, remembering the countless times I'd been pulled into chaos I never asked for. I swiped to answer. Hey, the voice on the other end carried that same old entitlement I'd tried to escape. My heart clenched as fragments of the past invaded my calm. The fights over money, the nights I stayed awake worrying about a sibling who wouldn't lift a finger for himself, the subtle guilt my parents tried to plant in me as if my success obligated me to prop up everyone else. I glanced out my window at the city skyline, the streets bustling with people who had no idea the battles I'd fought quietly. I straightened my posture, letting a small smile touch my lips. Whatever this call was about, I knew one thing. I wasn't that girl anymore. And this time, I would decide the rules. I remember the night like it was yesterday. The air in our old family home smelled of fried onions and stale carpet, a scent that had once felt comforting, but now only reminded me of tension. I was 23, fresh out of college, full of ideas and ambition, but invisible in my own family's eyes. Emily, you should just cover for him. He can't do anything on his own, my mother said, her tone sharp but laced with expectation, as if my brother's failures were somehow my responsibility. My father didn't even look up from his newspaper. Their words didn't sting as much as the dismissal behind them, the way they acted as if my dreams were optional. I felt the familiar lump in my throat, a wave of frustration and hurt. My hands shook slightly as I gripped the edge of the table, trying to anchor myself. I wanted to scream, to tell them I wasn't made for this role, the unpaid caretaker of someone else's choices, but I knew it wouldn't matter. They had their version of family duty, and I was supposed to comply. That's when Grandma's words echoed in my mind, like a lifeline. Never let anyone rent space in your soul for free, Emily. Your gifts are yours. Protect them. I could almost feel her wrinkled hand on mine, warm and steady, a reminder that someone believed in me unconditionally. I stood there, swallowing hard, and looked at the worn photograph of myself on the fridge, cap and gown, diploma in hand, smiling wide and hopeful. I realized then that standing still was the same as shrinking. I had to move. I had to claim my own life, even if it meant leaving their expectations and them behind. By the next morning, I had packed a small suitcase, carefully leaving a note that simply read, "I love you all, but I need to find my own way." Every step away from that house felt like a rebellion against the voice inside me that had longed to be seen. That night I felt fear, yes, but also a rush of clarity. Independence wasn't just a choice, it was my salvation. I moved to a small apartment in Chicago with nothing but a suitcase, my laptop, and Grandma's words tucked in my heart. The first few weeks were terrifying. I remember staring at the blank screen of my laptop for hours, questioning every decision I had made. Could I really build something for myself without the safety net of family approval? The city outside buzzed with life, a constant reminder that the world didn't pause for anyone's fears. Then I met Claire, a seasoned marketing executive who ran a small consultancy firm. I had stumbled into her office looking for an internship, expecting nothing, and found someone who saw potential rather than doubt. "You've got the ideas," she said, peering over her glasses, "but you need to believe in them first. I'll show you the rest." Her mentorship was relentless, and for the first time, I felt both challenged and supported. The days turned into nights, and the nights blurred into early mornings. I learned to negotiate, to pitch, to strategize. I stumbled, often hard. I remember losing my first client to a competitor, crying into my pillow while the city lights glared through the window, mocking me, or so it felt. But I also remember the small victories. The first contract I signed on my own, The first paycheck that didn't just cover rent but let me breathe a little easier. The first compliment from a client who truly believed in my work. I kept my progress hidden from my family. Every call I avoided, every vague social media post, was deliberate. I didn't need validation from them. My success was my secret treasure, growing quietly while I rebuilt my sense of self. There were days when the weight of secrecy felt heavy, especially when a pang of guilt tried to convince me I owed them something, but I held firm. I also learned to celebrate myself in little ways. The aroma of fresh coffee in the morning became a ritual. I'd run my fingers over my notebook filled with sketches and ideas, feeling proud even before the world noticed. My apartment slowly transformed into a reflection of my growth. Framed certificates, a small gallery of personal achievements, a tidy desk where every object had purpose. Each corner whispered, "You belong here." By the end of the second year, I had launched my own boutique consultancy. Clients came from referrals, impressed by my dedication and innovative approach. I was financially independent, emotionally resilient, and quietly unstoppable. And yet, there was one thing I hadn't done. Told anyone in my family what I had achieved. Not yet. I often imagine their surprise, the way they would look when confronted with the truth. But for now, I held the power quietly, savoring each moment of autonomy, knowing that one day, the revelation would be mine to deliver. I had built a life from nothing, and every brick was laid by my own hands. The knock on my apartment door startled me more than I expected. I wasn't expecting anyone. Not my parents, not my brother, not anyone from the past I had tried so hard to leave behind. Yet there they stood, my mother's pursed lips, my father's furrowed brow, and of course my brother, arms crossed, leaning against the doorway as if he owned the place. I took a slow breath, smoothing my blouse and letting my posture speak confidence before I even opened my mouth. The apartment smelled faintly of vanilla and leather, a subtle contrast to the chaos that often accompanied their visits in my youth. Expensive art lined the walls, each piece chosen carefully, each one a testament to nights spent chasing dreams while the rest of the world slept. My desk gleamed, perfectly organized, with a laptop open to a thriving business dashboard. Every corner of the space whispered my story: resilience, vision, independence. They stepped in, eyes darting from the framed certifications to the sleek office setup, to the shelf of awards I had kept tucked away. I watched them process the evidence silently, their disbelief growing with each passing second. "Emily," my mother began, but the words caught in her throat. My father simply folded his arms, a mixture of skepticism and surprise etched across his face. And my brother? He looked almost vulnerable, unsure, stripped of the entitlement he carried for so long. I let the silence stretch, letting them take it all in, their expressions painting the picture I had imagined countless times. Then I spoke. "I run my own consultancy now," I said, voice calm, deliberate. "I have a team, clients across the country, and a net worth that allows me to live without depending on anyone." I let my eyes meet theirs, unflinching. All of it built by myself, from nothing, while I was learning to take care of myself instead of bailing others out. Shock hit them like a wave. My mother's lips parted as if to speak, but no words came. My father's eyes widened, and my brother's jaw slackened. I continued, letting each fact land: the contracts I had signed, the clients who trusted me, the business I had grown from a small apartment to a boutique firm. I didn't tell you before, because I wanted to see if I could do it on my own. I needed to know my worth wasn't defined by anyone's expectations, especially yours. I added, the warmth in my tone tempered with steel. They looked around again, this time less like guests and more like intruders in a world they hadn't imagined could exist without their input. I could almost hear the gears turning in their heads, guilt mingled with awe. For years, they assumed I needed them to support me. Now, the roles had shifted entirely. I leaned against my desk, feeling the quiet power of ownership in every fiber of my being. "This is my life," I said, voice firm but not unkind. "And the choices I make now are mine. But I'm willing to talk about what happens next, on my terms." For the first time, The weight of past expectations felt light. The girl who left that old house trembling with uncertainty had become a woman who commanded her own destiny. And they were standing, finally, in the world she had built for herself, whether they deserved it or not. The room was thick with silence after my words. Their eyes shifted nervously, searching for a response, but I held the space, letting the truth of my independence settle over them like a weight they hadn't anticipated. This was my moment, my power, and I would wield it carefully, with clarity, but without compromise. "I'll help," I said finally, my voice measured, soft yet firm. "But there are conditions. Rules, really. If you want to be part of my life, you need to respect the boundaries I've set." My brother's eyes flicked up, hope mingled with uncertainty. I can change," he stammered. I nodded slowly. "Then prove it. Start by finding your own path. No handouts. No shortcuts. You need to learn responsibility, earn your own living, and pursue a skill, a job, a dream, anything that gives you pride independent of me." Turning to my mother and father, I continued. "You both taught me obligation before opportunity. You shaped me with guilt. That stops now. If you want our relationship to continue, I need honesty, effort, and respect. That means listening when I speak, acknowledging my achievements without diminishing them, and being willing to see the world outside your expectations." I could see the sting in their expressions, the confrontation of old habits colliding with new realities. Yet I softened slightly, the warmth of my intent shining through. "I care about you all," I said, "but care doesn't mean giving endlessly or ignoring my own needs. If you truly want to be part of this life, you'll accept these terms. Not as punishment, but as a blueprint for a healthier, stronger family." My brother swallowed hard. "And if I mess up?" I smiled faintly, a mixture of empathy and authority. "Then you learn. Growth isn't about perfection. It's about effort. I won't bail you out because I want you to stand. I'll guide, support, and encourage, but you must do the work." That's the difference between dependence and independence. My parents exchanged a glance I didn't need to interpret. I had seen that same guilt, shame, and dawning realization countless times growing up. Now the roles were reversed. I held the framework for change, and it was theirs to embrace or not. I stepped closer, letting my presence fill the room without aggression. "These conditions aren't just for you," I added. "They're for me too. I will maintain my life, my work, my boundaries. And I expect that respect to be upheld. We can be family, but it will be a family of equals, not debtors and gatekeepers." Finally, I paused and let the moment breathe. Silence, but this time it was not awkward. It was anticipatory, charged with potential. The old patterns had been broken, the power had shifted, and I was firmly in control. For the first time, I could imagine a future where we all coexisted, each responsible for their own growth, yet still connected through mutual respect. And in that quiet, decisive moment, I realized just how far I had come. I wasn't just reclaiming my life. I was teaching those who had tried to confine me that independence could be generous, strong, and beautifully uncompromising all at once. Weeks passed, and slowly, I began to see change. My brother started looking for jobs seriously, no longer lounging on the couch waiting for someone else to solve his problems. It wasn't perfect. There were mistakes, frustrations, moments of old patterns creeping back, but there was effort, and effort was enough. My parents, too, began adjusting. My mother no longer criticized or undermined my decisions. Instead, she asked questions, genuinely curious about the life I had built. My father, quiet as ever, would nod in acknowledgement when I shared updates, a small but meaningful shift from the dismissive stares I had grown up with. I watched them, sometimes in silence, and felt a deep, unspoken satisfaction. Not from revenge, not from proving them wrong, but from witnessing growth unfold because I had finally claimed my power. The girl who once trembled in her old home was gone. She had been replaced by a woman who could hold love and authority simultaneously, who could care deeply while remaining fiercely independent. One evening, as I sipped tea in my sunlit apartment, my eyes landed on the small, folded note Grandma had given me years ago. Never let anyone rent space in your soul for free. I smiled softly, tracing the words with my fingers. It had been my compass through every struggle, every late night, every risk, and now it felt like a quiet celebration of the life I had fought to build. I realized that empowerment wasn't just about wealth or recognition. It was about the ability to choose your relationships, your battles, your life, and your peace. I had learned to protect myself while allowing room for others to grow. I had learned that boundaries could be acts of love, and generosity could exist without sacrificing self-respect. As I looked out over the city skyline, I felt a sense of calm triumph. I had weathered storms, faced the expectations of those I loved, and emerged stronger than I ever imagined. And in that clarity, I whispered to myself, a soft yet unwavering mantra. I am enough. I am whole. And I will never be anyone's unpaid caretaker again, except for my own dreams. The sunlight caught my hair as it fell across my shoulders, warm and steady. I let myself savor the moment, knowing that the path ahead would still hold challenges, but for the first time, I was ready to meet them on my terms. Fully, unapologetically, and beautifully free.